This will be the first time that the Boston Bruins will have a lineup that does not feature Brad Marchand or Patrice Bergeron since 2003. After failing to meet expectations at the beginning of the season, the Boston Bruins never managed to get back on track, making them one of the most interesting teams at this year's deadline. Well, after much speculation, the Bruins decided they needed to make some drastic changes, trading away veteran players like Brad Marchand, Charlie Coyle, Trent Frederic, Justin Brazeau, and Brandon Carlo. It was a seller's market and Boston wisely took advantage, but this team still has big contracts and players that are within their prime window, leaving fans with a glaring question of what's next. After a big win yesterday against the Tampa Bay Lightning, Boston does still have a chance to be a playoff team, and by no means are they bad once they get their players back from injury. So today, let's talk about the Boston Bruins, their playoff hopes this season, their trade deadline, and what the next chapter of Boston Bruins hockey is going to look like after all of these changes. We have the Boston Bruins. Of course, I want to hear your guys' thing. I'm going to be biased because that's my team, but the Boston Bruins made the most trades of the deadline. They had 5 different moves, traded Brandon Carlo, Trent Frederic, Justin Brazeau, Charlie Coyle, and Brad Marchand. Based on the return that were sent out for these players, what is the next step for Boston based on what they are currently dealing with?
I got to take this one first here.
Go for it.
So, based on what we've seen with the Boston Bruins, it's hard to say rebuild in the city of Boston because we have not seen that for a very long time. So maybe we're seeing something of a retool. They go and pick up a very sneaky move here. They get a second-round pick, Middlestat, and a little bit of other pieces in exchange for Charlie Coyle, which I really do like that move. I mean, you have a young guy there, lots of upside. You still have to figure out what you're going to do with maybe the Lindholm contract or the Zadorov contract, whatever. Years gone. Swayman hasn't been that great. It's retool all day for this. I mean, you're restocking the cupboard here. You're getting picks back. I don't expect something to be too different for them. Don Sweeney feels like he's going to be at this helm for years and years to come, even though they've been asking for his job. But I think a retool is going to be coming here. I wouldn't say rebuild just yet. Pasternak signed there for a reason, and I don't expect it to be something long-term if this is a retool that's going to be that like that. So I say short-term.
Yeah, I don't disagree with your point. And if you're Boston and Sweeney, you're looking at a retool before you really decide if you want to blow this thing up. Because Pasternak, he just signed that extension. You have Swayman, who just signed before this season. And you also end up going out and get Elias Lindholm and Zadorov in the offseason to help improve some of your needs that you had coming into the season. So to say that they're going to blow it up, I think might be a little bit of a stretch, at least this summer. I would expect this team to go out and try to add some pieces and help round out the roster. Maybe go out and try to get a bigger fish to pair with David Pastrnak and improve their center depth and their back end of their blue line. So if Sweeney plays his cards right, I think next season is going to be a little bit rough. But I would see them the 26-27 season. They might be back depending on how long Sweeney plans on to take this retool. I mean, we'll see at the end of the day. But, I mean, if I'm a Bruins fan, I'm trusting Sweeney with this. I'm trusting he can go out and make the right moves.
Yeah, and I'll have a question for you, Zach, in a minute because you're a Maple Leafs guy. We got a pretty decent player who I think is going to be good for the Bruins in the future that people aren't talking about a lot. But going out, they lose Brad Marchand, Charlie Coyle, Brazeau, Frederic, Carlo, like we talked about. But the haul they got back, this is a list, guys, so listen up. They got Casey Middlestat, a 2026 first-round pick, Fraser Minton, who we'll get into in a minute, William Zellers, a 2025 conditional pick that was for Marchand, 2 other second-round picks in 2026, a 4th-round pick in 2026, Jacob Lauko comes back for Brazeau, and a 6th-round pick. So Fraser Minton is the guy who I'm the most interested in, and I've seen a lot of Toronto fans were actually kind of upset that he left the team and that they were willing to offer him up for Carlo, even though I think Carlo is exactly what Toronto needed when it came to the trade deadline. So tell me a little bit about Minton, if you think that that's going to be a good piece for them moving forward, and if he can help Boston kind of speed up this retool a bit.
Yeah, so I will say you did miss Murat Huzadinov, who I think is a very good piece to get in from the Minnesota Wild. He did not get a lot of chance there, so I really hope he'll do more, at least, or at least we'll get more time there. But for Fraser Minten, the thing is, you're going to hear a lot about this guy. Toronto is the mecca of hockey. I don't like to say it like that, but if somebody is slightly good and is a prospect, they're going to hype him up like there's no tomorrow. But Fraser Minten is a good player. The upside on the offense isn't exactly there. I wouldn't say it's some elite stuff, but he could be a top 6 player. More going to be a middle 6 center who's going to grind minutes. He has a great shot. His work ethic is very good, and honestly, he's a good personality to have someone in the room, so you know he's not going to be getting into any trouble. He's going to stay on his work. He's going to be doing his thing. Now, Maple Leafs fans, I will say, they were probably more relieved to see him go over a guy like Easton Cowan or Ben Danford. Danford has really pushed himself up in terms of value, being on Oshawa there, and I've been able to watch him a lot. He's improved his game. Fraser Minten, you should be excited. Like this is a good guy who's going to be on your team for a long time, as long as you can pay him well, because I think he's going to be very good that way. And even for Brandon Carlo, this is the guy you've been hoping for on that defense core. They've been trying to find that person to slip in with Morgan Riley and really facilitate his game and make it more stable. They had that in Luke Shen. For some reason, they didn't sign him. Now you have that in Brandon Carlo. He's not more offense. He's all defense. He's going to be that stay-at-home guy. And now you really do have a solid top 4 in Tanev, McCabe, Riley, Carlo, and then whatever you want to do in that bottom pair. I feel like it's OEL and then some random person of Myers or Benoit. But look, the Bruins did well in this trade. A first, Minten, and the Leafs get Carlo back. Maybe it's a little bit of overpayment in some people's eyes, but I mean, you gotta. I would lean more Bruins on this. This is a nice trade for them.
Yeah, but it's good for Toronto, too, because Carlo has term. I think he signed till 2026, 27, which is why you got such a haul back. He's only 28 years old. The guy is a beast defensively and is the exact kind of player you want on your second pairing for a playoff run. As for the Bruins in general, just as the in-house Bruins fan, this was needed. Watching Bruins hockey, I've probably watched every game this season. It's not a good team. It didn't gel well. What you were hoping for was a team that could replicate the success you had last season, which was well over expectations. They shouldn't have gotten to the second round last year, and all of your guys who had career years last year, they're coming back. You overpay a few other guys who are all middle 6 players, and you just don't have the prospects. So I think what's going to happen is we're not going to see the Bruins go through a bunch of drafting years. I think a lot of these pieces are going to be flipped for someone in the offseason, and I do think that there's going to be some players available. I think Vancouver, which we'll get into in a little bit as well, will probably be shopping Pettersson and Besser. I think that both of those guys are not going to be on Vancouver next year, and I think if you can go out and get yourself a legitimate top-line center, you'll then have guys like Lindholm and as well Middlestat too, who I don't know if he's going to even stay on the team, who can slot in below, and you'll have a more respectable team. But this needed to happen. It sucks that you lose Brad Marchand. It sucks that he's not going to probably retire a Bruin, but being mediocre forever is not the way to go. So I think it's okay, and I do think Boston won the Carlo trade, but some of the other ones I'm not exactly feeling like Boston won, but they got a pretty good haul back. So
yeah,
all right,
I agree.